Hello, everyone. This is your weekly webinar with Squibbler. I'm Moxie, and this week we are going to talk about the importance of theme, which is what you're trying to tell your readers. This webinar is for fiction, nonfiction, and for screenplays. So in this webinar, you're going to learn what theme is and why it's crucial to know about yours. We'll listen to some ideas on theme from professional writers, and we'll look at some tips for developing theme in your projects. A theme is the underlying message or subtext in a piece of literature, music, film, or art. It's going to reflect the broader concepts or universal truths about human nature, society, or the world, and it often goes beyond the surface story and plot or content. Some key features of a theme are that they're universal. Themes are often going to resonate across cultures and time periods, dealing with issues or questions that are relevant to many people. They're also abstract ideas. Unlike the plot, which is concrete and specific, themes are expressed in abstract ideas such as love, justice, freedom, or conflict. Themes are also inferred. They're typically implied rather than directly stated, and it's going to require the audience to interpret what they feel the theme is. So here are some examples of themes from popular works. In literature, when you look at a play like Macbeth, you're seeing a theme on the dangers of unchecked ambition. In something like art, you might see the theme of resilience in Van Gogh's Starry Night, since the painter often struggled with mental illness. In movies, the theme of identity is something that we see in something like The Lion King, and we see that in a lot of Disney movies where a character has to discover who they are. Or you might have something like overcoming adversity, as you see in the film Rocky. In short, a theme is the big idea that's going to tie together the different elements of a creative work. So why is theme so important? It's important to know what your narrative is about. This is going to help you understand your purpose in writing, and it's going to also help you find your target audience. It's also going to help you when you're coming up with key terms to use in your manuscript's description for search optimization when you're ready to publish, or if you're going to send it out to your intended audience, whether that's a publisher or an agent. Theme is not the same thing as plot. There's a huge difference in the plot of your narrative versus your theme. So, for example, the plot of the movie Titanic is the sinking of the ship and the fates of the protagonists. But the themes are deeper than that. They're themes of love, expectations in relationships, and loss. Theme is also not the genre you're writing. And this is just important for some nonfiction narratives as it is for fiction. If you're writing a memoir, for instance, the theme is not the stories that you're selecting to tell about your life. It's the takeaway from the reader that they'll get from reading your stories. A memoir like The Glass Castle, for example, does fit the parameters of the memoir genre. The reader is going to follow the chronological life of author Jeanette Walls, but the theme is one of resilience and overcoming adversity as a family. And that's wider and bigger than just the stories she's going to tell about her family. So how do you find your theme? By the time your book is ready to be published or your screenplay is ready to be sent to producers and agents, you should have a very strong sense of what your narrative is about. So when this webinar is going to be published on Discord, we do upload them. We'll have an accompanying worksheet to help you find your theme. So here are some things that professional authors and screenwriters have said about theme. Fantasy writer Neil Gaiman says he thinks the lesson, that's what he calls the theme, in a story is so important that he doesn't even tend to think about the plot as much as he thinks about what he's trying to tell his reader. His book Neverwhere is a fantasy about what lives beneath the streets of London, but the theme is one of homelessness. Stephen King, in his book On Writing, a memoir of the craft, said, "Good books don't give up all their secrets at once. A good theme holds its secrets and reveals them bit by bit as a story unfolds." And this is especially true for those of you who are writing things like crime and thriller or suspense. F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote The Great Gatsby, says that you find the key emotion, and this might be all you need to find your theme. Ray Bradbury, famous science fiction writer, says he doesn't write about politics. He writes about the individual and the universal themes of love, fear, loneliness, and belonging. And another theme that we see quite often in books is going from adolescence to adulthood and learning things along that journey. Kurt Vonnegut said, "Find a subject you care about and which your heart feels others should care about." It is this genuine caring, not your games with language, which will be most compelling and seductive element in your style. And that's one thing to really think about. What is important to me, and how am I sharing that with my readers on my page? E.M. Forster, in his book on writing aspects of the novel, gives an example here. The king died and then the queen died is a story. The king died and then the queen died of grief is a plot. But how the grief of one woman affected her heart, that is the theme. John Steinbeck in East of Eden, who wrote East of Eden, says if a story is not about the hearer, he will not listen. And here I make a rule. A great and interesting rule is about everyone, or it will not last. This is important to think about when you're talking about your book. When people ask you what your book is about, they're going to get pretty bored if you start to detail your plot. It's sort of like listening to someone describe their dreams because we weren't there. It's just not that interesting to us. But if you talk about your theme, this book is about the conflicts that two divorced couples have when they're trying to find love again. That's much more interesting than, oh, it's a rom-com about divorced couples trying to find, a relationship. There's a big difference. So here are some tips to help you develop your theme, and this will go along with the worksheet that you can access on Discord. So you do want to identify your core message. Ask yourself, what do I want to say in my narrative, whether it's fiction or nonfiction? And what universal truth or idea is going to resonate with me? This core message is often going to become your theme. So it might be something like the cost of revenge or the resilience of the human spirit. You do want to start with a personal passion. And I think this is a little bit easier for nonfiction writers because they do know what they want to share with their readers and they set out with that goal. But fiction writers and screenwriters need to think about this as well. Themes are very powerful when they reflect on something you care deeply about. You want to write about issues, emotions, or questions that matter to you. And they'll surely connect with other people as well. You want to draw from your life experiences or beliefs to ground your theme in authenticity. You should also consider your genre. While genre and theme are different things, they do work together. And themes can differ depending on the type of story you're telling. So a romance theme might explore love versus duty. And that's something we see in Titanic, where Rose has to abandon the life that she's supposed to go into when she falls in love with Jack. Thrillers might focus on things like trust and betrayal, and they often do. So let the genre help guide your thematic focus. You also want to use your characters. Great themes are going to be explored through your characters. So what does each one of your characters believe? How do their choices and conflicts reflect the theme? For example, a story about courage might feature a character overcoming fear in multiple ways. And what's really nice about Scribbler's the application is that when you set up your elements, you can set up your characters to reflect your theme. You can talk about some of their concerns, and then that will also develop as the AI is generating text for you. You can also examine conflict and resolution. The heart of the story, obviously, is going to be the conflict, and its resolution often leads to the theme. So what central conflict is driving your story? What does the resolution teach characters in the audience about life or the world? This is something to keep in mind as well. It's also important to embrace subtext. Themes are often going to work best when they're not directly stated. So use symbolism, recurring motifs, and imagery to suggest deeper meanings. One really good way to do this is to read poetry related to the idea you're trying to develop. So in other words, if you're trying to develop a theme on love, you could read poems related to that topic. If you're trying to read write about a theme on betrayal, you can read poems related to that topic, and it will help you get some words in your mind bank and some motifs and metaphors as well. You want to let the audience infer the theme through actions and consequences as well. It's also a good idea to explore opposing views. So a strong theme often engages with its opposite. So if your theme is freedom, you might also want to explore the opposite, oppression. You can present multiple perspectives through different characters or plot lines to add depth. And a lot of the times, that's why we will have a hero and an anti-hero, or a protagonist and an antagonist. And the conflict is that they do not share the same worldview or goals. You also want to root the theme in the plot that you're writing. The events should reinforce the theme. So how does each one of your major plot points connect with your core idea? Avoid forcing the theme. You want to let it emerge organically from the narrative, though. Another good idea is to create a thematic statement. You can write a single sentence that captures your theme. For example, greed leads to self-destruction. Love can overcome prejudice. This statement can guide you as you write. You might even, tape it to your writing desk or something as you're working so you can be reminded of it as you're working. You do want to layer your themes as well. Some great works have more than one. So you can add secondary themes that complement or contrast the main one. For example, in Lee Harper's famous book, To Kill a Mockingbird, the primary theme of racial injustice is complemented by themes of courage and childhood innocence. They work very strongly together. You can also test your theme on your audience. You can ask, don't tell your beta readers what your story is about. Ask them what they think it is about as they're reading. If they pick up on your intended theme, you're on the right track. If not, if they can't pick out what your story is actually about other than plot, you might want to consider refining your theme in a way that's more integrated into your story. You also want to revise and deepen when you get to that point. Themes often become clearer during revisions, so look for moments where your theme can be strengthened or clarified. This is always really fun to me. It's one of the fun parts of having a draft and then being able to rewrite, read it, and edit it, and find those places where you can really strengthen areas of theme. You want to cut the elements that are going to distract from the core idea. Then this is going to ensure thematic consistency. So in this webinar, we have reviewed what theme is and why it's crucial to know. We took a look at some ideas on themes from professional writers. We looked at some tips for developing themes in your project. And I do want to show you briefly what the worksheet will look like in the resource library. This will be uploaded with the webinar. So this is a theme planner for you writers. And we have one for fiction and we have one for nonfiction. And as you listen to this webinar, it's going through the same sort of steps that we just followed for tips for finding your theme. There's fiction and then there's nonfiction. So whichever genre you're writing, you'll be able to use this to plan your theme out as well. Thank you as